the Maroons in Jamaica and Bob Marley music. So Aluku Soldier is a famous song from this time, you know. And this band still exists. They are friends of Jean Denis. Because in the same time in Suriname there was the Revolution War. Now the president of Suriname is a black guy. They call themselves jungle soldier, you know. So I thought it was, I really like this song, and there was no reason to use it on the credit. The credit is so short, there was no reason to use it as a score. So I just use it really at that moment where we are not riding horses, but this kind of quad to go deep in the forest, because they use quad because it's very muddy and very...
I think this is better than having a fiction movie. This is real, live, self-expressive, and very clear. Very clear.
In another way, there are many aspects of that I did not say, you know, they were really mistreated, you know. When suddenly they decided to protect the Wayana Indian and to put them in a park, like special humans, you know. The Aluku, they refuse to be in a park you can visit, you know. But still they want to work, and they want to hunt, and they want to fish. They're not allowed anymore, you know. And when he said pork chop, he doesn't like to eat meat that comes from France or England, you know. So I think it's interesting to hear, even if I am going to do the fiction, because the fiction it will start in 82 when their mother died, because the mother, I showed a picture, died. She was burnt alive, but not by soldiers. She was burnt alive because at that time they had no electricity, so they had small fridge. You use gas to, and the little fridge blow, and she was. So I will start there, and it's also exactly when the revolution started in Suriname.
And it's very interesting when he says, "My mother gave us a heart, a body, and a heart." It's interesting the choice of the two words, a body and a heart only.
Yeah, no. What else? She had nothing, you know. She had no money in the bank, you know. So she gave us what she could, which is already a lot.
And the way he describes her, that she was mother, father, man, woman, a good,
and friend.
There was a point when he was talking about the teachers in the schools for the kids, and he was saying that their culture was being dissipated, was being destroyed. What did he mean by...
Not destroyed, it's not considered, you know. So in Suriname, they will learn, let's say, sort of Creole Dutch. There will be some that speak English and Dutch. In France, they speak French. And their language is, they invent that language, you know. And it's very precious. It's like, for a lot of anthropologues, it's a sort of treasury, you know. People really reinvent their own, not their own, they come from Africa, they had lost everything, and they invent something together with the Indian, you know. So it's very precious. So now they try to create, Jean, his brother, some people, they try to create small school for the children to learn Aluku or Juka or Saramaka language, you know. There are 5 tribes, in fact. The Jukas here, Aluku here, Saramaka here. There was a genocide of Saramaka 30 years ago, and they are now, the United Nations give them money so they create school, and you know, those people were eliminated, you know, they tried to eliminate because they were like a stone in the shoes, you know. And they are, in fact, owner of those lands where the gold is. So that's the problem, you know. If they were only owners of trees, nobody let them live with like the Indian in a park, you know. But they said this gold is ours, you know. So this is the problem, actually.
Why did he say about Ken Bilby that racism caché racism built in himself? He could hide the...
I think I was surprised when Jean said that, because Jean always trusts Ken. It's through Ken I was able to meet Jean, because Jean would never meet French people. He's always afraid I could be a journalist or a bad-minded person. But through Ken I could. And then Jean took his time to test me, you know. But I think for Jean and for many people that are maroon, white people, even when they're friends, they have deep inside themselves, maybe even unconsciously, the feeling that they are slightly superior, you know. I think. When he can, each time I call Jean, he always make a little fun of me, you know, like, I became a friend, he trusts me, he knows I will make this fiction film about him, and he trusts me, but on the other hand, he make it clear that I cannot share his ancestral sufferance.
And that's very clear, because when he says there is internal betrayal, he feels it when he says we only unite in sorrow.
Sure, it's true.
They have changed themselves, and he feels it.
What do you think this film might do for them? Do you think it might, because they
afraid
were, you know,
them? This film afraid them?
Not this one, but the narrative, or the film that you're going to be doing, the fiction. Do you think it will help them come together a little bit more? Because it seems they were saying how they have come apart, and and his brother was saying that part of it was because of all these allegations against him. Like, it's sad that no one's standing with him anymore. And do you think the film might help them come together a little bit more, or do you think that's gonna stay for him? Do you think he'll stay an outsider?
No, I think the film, a fiction, is difficult to be very fair with a fiction. I will do my best. That's why I was happy to do this little film first. To make it clear that I was not interested only in a fiction. I wanted to go to the roots, to their history, and I have no idea what will be the result, because myself I don't know what, when the film is only in pre-production, there is no, I have hope in a lot of things. I put all the chance on my side, but on the other hand, I don't know. I hope it will be, already my feeling is that because the French government is not so happy of me doing this, and I might have to shoot all the war scenes on the Suriname side, I understand already that it's the beginning of something. We'll see.
Have you done a lot of location scouting as a group?
No, I've been meeting people.
Yeah.
Location scouting in Amazonia, it's pretty similar, you know. Once you have the river, the small village of old people,
Yeah.
it's pretty much the same. And if I need, Jean kept all his house, the little wooden shack, to the last one, so I will probably use the real location for location, because I think Jean would accept that. Now we have a sort of, I don't think he trusts me 100%, but he trusts me, let's say, 80%. At the beginning it was 0, you know, so step by step is part of it. Now he says our film, you know.
Where are the women? I mean, there was an absence of women within the film. The mother has died, the wife of, or the mother of the little children was gone. But were they on the edges, or are they gone?
Yeah, the mother died. Okay, the Johan, the brother who was raised on the Dutch Suriname and then sent to Holland and became a military there. He was a soldier sent to Lebanon, but he married a Dutch woman, so he had children in Holland, and when he came back to marry Pasula, he married a young Aluku woman. He had 2 children, and she died from sort of malaria fever, you know. So it's true that the 2 brothers raised their children on their own, but in the film there will be women, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's just that this little documentary was, the purpose was to meet Jean.
Yeah.
And Jean has 24 children.
Wow.
They all have, they are, since the very beginning, they know they are 2,000, 3,000, they need to, because the mortality is high, they must have a lot of children. Not with the same woman, but to make sure the Aluku or the Saramaka still exist. Because they don't feel African. Huh? You can't take them back to Africa. The actor I chose, Jean-Christophe, is from Togo. Because I knew they will appreciate that. At least they had something in common.
Yes, there's a connection.
Not cultural, I think. 400 years it's too. But maybe even in their face you can see something.
Yes, oh yes.
You mentioned that there was some suspicion with him, and slowly he trusted you more and more. What do you think he hopes will come of this? Do you think he wants his story, his situation to be told, and do you think he wants France to know his situation and the rest of the world?
No, I think he's got, if you look in Wikipedia or Google, his name is really badly mentioned. So I think because I was introduced by Kenneth Bilby, he sort of had to at least say hello to me, you know. But he was fearing the worst. He thought maybe she contacted Kenneth Bilby and yet she might be a journalist or something. But I had no camera, I had not even a still photograph. So and then I came back, I met him a few times. And then after a while, he realized I was really trying to make that film. So I told him, maybe I have this little money, I will do the documentary first, and it will be another moment where we can trust each other a little bit more. Then you will meet the actor who will in-person you, and you can say, I like, and this actor stay there, and now he can speak Aluku, you know, he stay with Jean. So I think slowly, but I think he was afraid. Too many journalists sent by France were sent to portray. In fact, the gold business is so much important that their real problem is what they call the galimperos, which are the wild, the Brazilian crossing the border and coming wild, 2 or 3, sometimes just a couple, and they go to a place that was already dig and take the leftover with mercury, you know. They wash the sand with mercury, which is, of course, very dangerous for the soil and the waters. And those guys are called garimperos, and they have no papers, no permit. But there are so many, because north of Brazil, those people are very poor, and in a forest deep like Amazonia, there is no border, you know. So they try to arrest the Brazilian, but it's impossible. It's like if you, in the summer in the garden, if you don't want small insects, it's impossible there, because the Brazilian who comes, they know the forest, and the French policemen that are based in French Guiana, they are terrified by the forest, you know, so they send helicopter, you know, they're not used to sleep there, they don't know the animal there. So I think instead of pretending the problem is the garimperos, the clandestine Brazilian, they sort of choose Jean Benat as the troublemaker. They accuse him of killing the Brazilian and hiring the Brazilian. So at least it was more easy for them to have one enemy than a lot of spread enemy in the forest. So each time they arrest a clandestine Brazilian, they ask them, "Are you working for Jean Benat?" You know, and the guys, sometimes they don't even speak French, so they say yes. They thought maybe it will help us, you know. And Jean now works on the Suriname side. He doesn't want to work anymore on the French side, although he's French. And the French people say he's so rich and he doesn't invest one dime for France. But I can tell you the huge Canadian French companies would be called in French Guiana, they don't invest in France either. They don't build school or hospital, you know. They buy a lot of vineyards in Chile, or they buy a house in Miami, you know.
Is there a lot of violence in that region based on the people coming over? And
Sure, everyone has a gun.
guns, there's a lot of guns.
Jean has a 9mm in his belt. I mean, and I was told, if you go there, you're with a crew, there will be no insurance. But of course, you know, it's always the same. If you go there really trusting people, and I was not afraid, really. I was selling nothing, I was stealing nothing, and Jean was protecting us. I think nobody would have harmed us, I guess.
Something that I thought was really interesting about his character is that he seems to be somebody who's like, his reputation is really
The devil.
attacked. Yeah, everybody attacks him all the time. But on the other hand, he's a mafioso.
Yeah,
And, he is very,
but he's no more a mafioso than a well-established
yes, called
Canadian-French
Yeah.
gold company, you know?
Right, yeah, no, he's just the same.
He's just the same, but
Yeah.
he's a mafioso, and there are huge mineral metallic companies, you know, they have other names. Of course, gold is very expensive by now, you know. And I tell you, if you go on the French side, they have guns too, they have armed guards. Because gold, even when we had the quad, two more quad, you pay with gold. Little, you don't need money, you know. You buy a coca or a piece of bread, you have to pay everything with a little piece of gold, you know. So in a way, the way of life is, slightly like a mafia, but
It's dangerous.
not dangerous, but what is the difference between legal gold digging and illegal if you do exactly the same thing?
Yeah.
The only illegal thing is to use mercury.
Well, I wonder if I guess it's only dangerous if they start killing each other
Yeah,
that's when
they kill each other, of course, for gold. Yeah, but this happened on, not only with Alukus, you know. Yeah,
Well, it just seems like
and they destroy the forest too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know then now they want all these companies. They said we protect the forest, we protect the butterfly, we protect the bird, we protect the Indian. Why don't they protect the Alukus then? You know, that's weird.
Yeah. Or
They
why do
protest
try-
trees.
Why do they try to oppress their entrepreneurial projects?
Yeah.
So why are they oppressing their desires to make capital?
Jean and his brother, they are crazy about having cows,
Yeah.
raising cows, you know. They have this African grass style and everything. They are not allowed because this land, the Lawa, is where they want to put the nature park. So they are not allowed to have cows. So they can buy pork chops in the supermarket, you know. And they want to have chicken, they want to have cows, they want, you know, they want to grow their vegetables, you know.
The schools were mentioned. I'm curious who the children are educated by, and once they're schooled, do they tend to leave or do they stay in this region?
One of the guys I wanted to interview in the documentary was, in fact, very sick when I came. He had a sort of high crisis of malaria. He was a very good student, and he became the youngest mayor. He was deputy and then elected mayor at the age of 26. He's an Aluku. He was the youngest deputy in France, you know. He studied economical and science politics in Paris, and he is an extremely intelligent guy called Abolo. And when he was elected mayor of Maripasula, he built a small hospital, school, and he road. I mean, he as an Aluku, he tried really to make Maripasula a big place. And then he was accused of bank abusing. In fact, he was borrowing money to build the school and the hospital, so he took a lot of credit to make Maripasula. Also, he made a college after school, sport, gymnasium, things like that. But it was very unfair. And he knew the fact that he was an Aluku was the real problem, because he has also a free spirit, So he crossed the river and he hid himself at Jean's, and he for 5 years he worked with Jean in the gold. And then the accusation where they realized, they admit the accusation where. So he came back to Maripasula, and now he's in the wood business. He doesn't want to be elected again. He doesn't want to be in politics again. And he has 26 children. All his children are studying either in England or France, and all of them are studying law, which I find funny.
That's really interesting.
So I think he's preparing for the future,
Yeah.
Will they come
And he's
back?
a very...
Will his children come back after they're done studying?
Sure, one of his children is already back in Cayenne, and is a good lawyer. So these guys are really... They're tough, And Jean, in his time... Oh, sorry, it's me, I'm going to stop. In his time, his brother was taller than him, half his brother, so he was sent to school.
It's a lovely ringtone.
He was sent to school, his brother Johan, because Johan was very fragile, long, skinny body. So he was sent to school because the father thought he's too weak to stay in the forest. So he was sent to school in a boarding school on the Suriname side in Paramaribo. And he became swimming champion. So he was sent to Holland to be a soldier. He came back after, so he can speak only Dutch, Aluku, and English. No, not really French. But Jean, younger, few years younger, was very solid, and the family decided he doesn't need to go to school. It's better we use him for the crops, And he learned to write and to read, and he read many books. He was going to see the teacher at night, and he's also, he speaks as an uneducated guy, but he communicates a lot with Kenneth Bilby, and he pretends he's a forest man, but he's really, it's a role. I think he's much more educated than that, because when I go, sometimes I say things and I can see by his reaction he knows much more than he pretends to know. He has read all the book Ken Bilby wrote, and he speaks Brazilian, Spanish, French, English, Aluku, of course. And Wayana, because he was raised with the Wayana. Hello?
Can you talk a little bit about, I'm curious about your writing process, going from something so actual to something fictional?
I started working on the script 2 years ago, before I met Jean. I work on document and element. That's how I found Ken, and he met me after I did white material, and he was happy that I was interested by the project. And then I met another filmmaker from Chicago called Ben Russell, who made a film about the other black people, Saramacas, in Suriname. So I had a lot of information also from the press. I could read the trial, Jean Benat's trial,
Transcripts.
yeah, newspaper, of course. And I had a lot of information. A lot were false. So I start working the script and I decide I will start in the 80s and finish today when Jean, in a way, has surrendered. He no more lives in French Guiana, he lives on the Dutch side, and the only thing he wants for his children is to go to Holland, to the European court, to get his name clean. That's all he wants. So for his children, to wear a name that is not attached to stealing and killing. And so for me the process of writing was, I had many, we can discuss that if you want, I had many options, not many, 3 or 4 options. And I sort of developed few of them and made my mind upon certain things. In the end, to have a fiction film, yes, but completely nourished by the milk of history, in a way, you know. So if you see the film, you know a little bit about the Maroon people. They're very Maroon people. They really think they are stronger than other people. They have been surviving through. They have a sort of despise for the Creole people who were to their eyes slaves who stayed in the plantation. For them, they were the one who escaped, the rebel. They dislike when I say, you run away from the plantation, your ancestors run away. No, they did not run away. They make themselves free.
The choice of the title of the documentary, Aller au Diable, the Diable, when the documentary is over, you have the feeling of liking this Diable. It's a new definition for the Diable. I think in the movie too.
Because he calls himself, he says, when I come somewhere, Jean Benat, the devil. And he I never told, when the plane landed in Cayenne, of course I told no one I was going to Marie Bassoula, but no one knew I was going to film Jean Benat, you know. Because I had no permit to go to Suriname. But you know, it's nothing. You cross the river and you're in Suriname.
And the sense of humor that Christopher Columbus went there to steal. He did not discover anything.
Yeah. Because they are accused to steal gold from the Indian, but the Indians are not allowed to dig for gold, you know? And the Aluku neither, you know? So who is stealing?
It's almost like it's illegal to be a luku, just in general. They can't eat what they want to eat, they can't.
It's illegal to be, like Johan says in his bad English, it's illegal to be a rich Aluku. It's totally okay if you are a poor Aluku who receive 400 euros a month from the French government, you know, and with a French identity, this is okay. You are a poor Aluku, you're okay. But to become a rich Aluku, this is another thing.
When the movie comes out, it will be a step before his children going to the European courts and cleansing, his reputation. The film
I don't know. He had changed. Now he has a good lawyer, but each time it's a long thing. It's a costly thing, and he has also to go on making money. He's raising 24 children. 2 years ago, one of his daughters was going blind. She's 7 years old, so he sent her to have surgery that cost him a lot of money. Then last year, his first wife and a baby they find they had diabetes, So he's in charge of a lot of things, So to go to Holland to help this thing, he needs a year, a solid year, Yeah, I hope he will.
Are you going to have to do this fiction film kind of in secret from the French government, do you think?
No.
Or is the fact that you're focusing on him, are you going to kind of hide that?
No. Of course, French is supposed to be a free country, so I can also make a film and pretend I defend Jean Benat's reputation. The trouble is when I ask to be helped using an helicopter or using this or using that, of course, they will say no. So I have to do it with the money, not asking many things from French Guiana, trying to be completely independent. Not trying, I have to be completely independent. Yeah. Money-wise, transportation-wise. Yeah.
It concerns me that they want to preserve they have a lot of children because they want to preserve their culture, but then they send all of their children to Europe to become educated. Is that not
to Europe or I mean, let's say there would be in the forest science, political school or law school.
Yeah.
Maybe they would not have to send them and pay a lot of money to have them educated. On the other hand, I think they enjoy that a little bit.
Yeah.
Because when Abolo, the ex-mayor, told me all his children were doing good in school and one of the eldest son became a famous lawyer, he had been studying in Paris and in Belgium, and I would say knew the enemy,
From within.
somehow.
Yeah.
So they're not going in naively in terms of getting their education.
Oh, they're shrewd.
Yeah.
They're really shrewd. They have been learning for 400 years to be shrewd, so.
So they're learning the language.
Mm.
Yeah, right.
They're learning to be I don't know, they're tough, yeah.
Yeah, so they build a fusion of new society based on tradition and infrastructure from a more Western type of community building. Right? Because they want to
No,
build
for instance, I met this one of the children was in Paris studying architecture. He's really willing to work with wood and no, they don't want to leave they want to keep their pride. So some part of they don't want to live like their ancestor with a piece of cloth and No,
Finality.
as Jean Benat said, we can travel the same plane.
Yeah.
It says everything. He lives in the forest. He knows when he's sick, he knows which plant will do that, you know. He was swimming in the river and he told me, it's my swimming pool, you know. He's like an Indian. He knows the forest very well. But he can fly the same plane. That's all. They want both. Why not? Me, you put me in this forest, I will die. I will not survive.
Yeah.
They can. Even the shooting there was not so easy for us. Huh? We were. It was very interesting to see. We felt weak. The heat was intolerable. At night, the insects were crawling. I mean, it was difficult, yes. Yeah. But we had a good time also by pretending we were strong, you know. The last day of shooting, the camera melt. That's why the first shot is the camera, because I wanted to prove this camera. It was full of. It started melting around the lens, you know, in the sun. The sun, yeah. And HD doesn't like very much humidity and heat.
So what will you do when you go back to shoot? Will you have a film camera when you go back to shoot?
I think I will shoot on film, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Because it's more solid.
Yes. But you'll have to protect the stock, but at least
It's easy to protect the stock, you know. I mean, easy.
easier. Yeah.
What vehicle were you on when you were filming this shot with your main actor and,
Yes.
you know,
In that
the
four-wheel
thing was
drive.
water pouring in up and down, and the handheld was very stable.
It was horrible. 2 hours it takes to go to the gold mine in this mud. And I didn't film in the village where we stopped to drink, because this village, I only filmed the place where we stopped to drink, because the main street is full of Chinese supermarket and Brazilian prostitution, you know. So I didn't want to film those women. But it was hard for the back and for the butt, you know. Oh my God. Yeah.
How large of a crew do you think you'll need to bring whenever you do the full film, like cast and crew? Is it going to be a large production, or?
No, I think we're going to film. Let's say the production is against that, but I want to do it like that. I want to shoot, let's say, 10 days with 6, 5, 7 person, then stop, go back to Cayenne. Then another 2 weeks with 20, go back to Cayenne, you know. Otherwise, it's really hard to be more, and it's hard to find accommodation. The food is okay, but it's to sleep, to find a cover, a shelter. No hotel, of course. No, I think it's going to be better to work by a piece of 10 days or 2 weeks, and then go back to mainland and rest 2 days and go back, you know.
And how's it going to work with the insurance?
We will manage. Yeah, I think we will. No, they will, because we will prove them that the place I will shoot are going to be secured. We will prepare the place and everything. Yeah. And of course, there is the risk that the boat might, because when the river is low, then the boulders, it's but we will be in good hands. And maybe the insurance, we don't tell them the exact truth, you know. We lie a little bit, as always. It's not much, but a little bit. And I will take risk when I know I can. I will certainly not put the actor in a dangerous situation or my technician just for. No, I think I was already shooting in dangerous places. I never felt I was putting people in danger. I don't know. I have a trust in that. But for this short film, yes, we were not insured.
It's more, I heard disease is more of like poisoning, water poisoning and stuff like that.
Oh no. First of all, you've got vaccination, and if you drink water from the bottle, or you boil the water first, no, you're not poisoning. The only thing you risk is malaria if you don't take your pill, and it's not fun to take those pills. Malaria, yes, and snake. Food is great. I mean, local food I really enjoyed.
Who approached you to make this fiction film?
A production company read about this guy, and they really had a terrible image of him, and they have met a guy who was working in the police in French Guiana and wrote a book about his fight against the gold digger, and about Jean Benat guts. And that's how I investigate.
Are they going to be surprised?
No, I told them already. They're not very. They have some hesitation, but I think. They didn't believe me at the beginning, but then I came back with proof.
That he's not really, I mean, that he has, there's no, that he's not the devil. That he's that he has violence, but he's not a violent person. He's not a he's not
For the people in Cayenne, he is the devil.
Yeah.
If when I open Wikipedia, it's terrible what you see about him. So if you say no, he's a bad guy, that's for sure. He's considered a bad guy. Like the mayor, the ex-mayor was considered a thief. Until now he's a sort of hero, that was unjustly condemned, So, Aluku are suspected to be bad, whatever they do.
Oh. He's not psychopathic. He doesn't have, Jean Benat is not psychopathic.
What do you mean psychopathic? I don't know what it...
That means, he's not mentally deranged. He's not insane.
I don't know.
I don't know. You think so?
I'm not a doctor. How do you know I'm not a psychopathic myself? How do you know?
How do I know? Perceived danger. You can see that somebody has a gun, but if you think that
to have a gun in a country like that, everyone has a gun.
Right, exactly. Everyone has a gun, and
You come from what country?
I'm from the U.S.
All right. You come from a country that was half the life of the U.S. was people carrying gun,
Yeah. Right. Well, I get the impression that his reputation is that he might be insane, but in reality he's not insane.
What means insane?
Insane?
I was in Texas, living in Texas for a while.
Okay.
Everyone has a gun
Yeah.
there,
Texans are kind
Do
of
you think
insane.
what do you mean?
Texans are kind of considered insane. They have the reputation of insanity.
What do you mean generally? You speak generally,
I do.
but it's crazy. You're here to learn. I met great people in Texas, you know? So, what do you mean insane?
Skewed perspective, impressions of
You
yeah.
think like that, you
No,
know?
I'm just questioning. I'm questioning people's impressions of others. I'm questioning people's impressions of Jean Denis.
My impression of people is I'm curious. I have absolutely no. I hate labels. I hate prejudices. So when I was in Texas, I noticed a lot of people were carrying guns, but I had no prejudices. And I had some great friends in Texas, you know, and some good filmmaker come from Texas. Bob Wilson is from Texas. You know what I mean? Prejudices leads you nowhere.
Yeah. Do you think that people outside of Guyana have that prejudice against Jean Denis because they write him as such?
Probably some journalists find it interesting to make him look like the devil, but when you ask me if he's psychopathic, I think I freaked out because I don't know what it means.
Yeah.
I don't know how I could. There might be a psychopathic person among us today, you know? Maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe few.
I thought it was interesting that he called his place metal.
Yeah.
Metal, yeah.
We just learned in class that he said the question of identity is kind of a sick question. He said it used to be that you knew who you were by what you did and what you were born into, and that was it. So I thought it was interesting that his first point of reference of identity was associated with what he does, metal.
Because when I first see, when someone from a boat show me this place, I go, this is the castle of Jean Denis, like as if machine gun were going to spread bullet on us, you know. I said, wow, it looks like a big villa, you know, not like a fortress, you know. It was not frightening to me, you know. Maybe a little pretentious, that's all I could say. And he said, and on top of everything it's called metal. And I said, wow, that's a good name. I like the name. He said, you like the name, but it's terrible. You know, metal, it means like him, is Iron Man. I said, no, I said, yeah. And then I asked him, why did you call your place metal? And he said,
I
so
was in
simple,
Miami.
you know?
And it was interesting when he was saying that people think he has like this castle. And it's when he said he went to Miami and that's where he learned, you know, the term metal and all of that. But he goes, do you think I have a castle? Is this a castle? And
It's
if
like
you realize,
just a huge villa, that's all. Yeah. Yeah, they think he has a plane and he is flying to Colombia to bring cocaine. You know, he has many dreams about him, you know.
yeah.
I thought that was
To discuss a little bit about
Your scripts.
scripts.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, when I was normally a script is something I have in mind, maybe bits by bits, but it's grow from different elements. In this case, I was asked, they contact me and ask me to read a synopsis and ask me if I would be interested in doing a fiction film about, they didn't say about Jean Denis, they said about, hey, everyone is leaving.
We may have ended class early.
That's the other
It's the
class.
other program.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
they
still
start
have like
earlier.
40 minutes or something.
So they said that I should make a fiction according to the synopsis about. It was not pro-French. It was about the French politics in French Guiana. Let's say, since historically, French Guiana was nothing but a jail, a terrible jail, very special. You would send them there only politic prisoner, or very dangerous people. And normally, there would be in a small island there that is called Île du Diable, the Devil Island, and where normally very few survive. It's called a penitentiary colony, and today it still exists in Saint Laurent du Maroni. This river you see goes to the sea, and there is a city called Saint Laurent, and it's visited by many tourists because a famous novel was written by a guy who survived and escaped called Papio, and they made a film about him with this famous American actor who died, Steve McQueen, was Papillon, butterfly. So still many American tourists come to visit this place because of the film. And it's very frightening, I must say, still today, this place. You can imagine the life, because the heat, there is nothing, forest and sea, it's hard. Anyway, there was absolutely no economical thing going on. Then, in the 70s, because it was only forest and nothing else, the French government built a space, a launch space.
A launch pad,
Yeah, to launch satellite, and it became very famous and still work a lot. You can still see launching satellite at least once or twice a month, and it's fun. So when they built that French Canavero, I can say, the name is Kourou, there by the sea, because it was a perfect place for clear sky, when you launch space satellite, you need no cloudy thing. The only workers there mainly were Creole community who were there 200 years ago as working in the penitentiary, in the pen. And of course, Creole people, they have always this bitterness in them, So the people who built the space thing, they bring a lot of people from other countries, from Vietnam, from France, and suddenly some people realize along the river there somewhere, the Aluku, were great carpenter, very solid, very tough, and with a good, how would I say, not weak in their mind, you know.
Yeah.
So they decide in the 70s to give them the French nationality for those who live on the French side of the river, and they offer them jobs in Kourou to work to build the place. And they even built an Aluku village near the Kourou. So since the 70s they became French, but little by little the Creole population and the French people who were there, because there was also some French people doing trade there, you know, they sort of disliked those Aluku because they were speaking tall, they were indocile, as I said, and somehow they were disliked. Also they had this superior, they said, we save ourselves, we get our freedom by ourselves, we survive in the forest 400 years, so don't give us lesson, you know? Okay, so indocile people, somehow not very good reputation already, and then in the end of the 70s, beginning of the 80s, Suriname, that was a Dutch, still Dutch, had an independence revolution and became an independent from the Dutch. And the President Bouteflika was a métis, half, more than that, a little bit Indian, a little bit black, and a little bit Dutch, you know. And he was a communist, friend of Fidel Castro. So suddenly Suriname was all the Dutch people left, no one, because he was friend with Fidel Castro, so communist at that time, you know, it was like hard. And because of that, some Alukus who were on the Suriname side create a sort of contra-revolution called the Jungle Commando, because they said, okay, this revolutionary, communist revolutionary, Bouteflika and all this, they are mixed Creole, Dutch and everything, they are communist, okay, but we are Aluku, and we want to be part of it, you know? We don't want to be forget in our forest. So the Jungle Commandos start to fight back. And all Suriname became a vast place of war, you know? That also create a lot of trauma in British Guyana. And of course Venezuela is here, you know, so and Cuba is here, so it was like a big thing. Huh? So those Aluku of the French side suddenly they didn't become jungle commandos, but they sort of decide to be a little bit more independent, to have school, teaching Aluku and blah, 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 blah. But at the same time, gold was found and it increased all the conflicts. So that's why when I read the synopsis was only about takes place in the end of the 90s, beginning of the 2000s, when the gold started rising a lot, and a French deputy, a French sheriff, let's say, tried to reorganize the Lawa with the Alco and to stop all those Brazilians clandestinely invading the territory, washing gold with mercury. And this guy tried to make friend with the Aluku to fight back the clandestinity. But on the other hand, he betrayed the Aluku. So that's why what I was supposed to tell, that story. In the end of it, Jean Denis was wounded. He was also arrested. And just because I was searching for information, I met Kenneth Bilby. He came to Toronto where one of my films was screened, and he enjoyed the film, and he said, okay, I take you there. I will introduce you to the real people so you will see the real story with your own eye. So that's how I met Jean Denis, his brother, his cousin, and a lot of other persons. And then suddenly I realized the script had to take much more to take into consideration much more that just this incident taking place between the French government and the Aluku in the beginning of the, let's say, end of from 1998 to 2003. I thought this isn't fair, so I decided to include in the film a 400 ago piece where the story, which is a legend of the Aluku, the way they run away from the plantation and the way they survive, it's their legend. And so I thought the film should contain that. Because nothing you cannot understand, there is nothing you can understand in a story like that if you don't know, if you just think there are black people living in South America. Because black people living in South America could be slaves from Africa. But Aluku or Saramaka, they free themselves. So for them, it's a major difference, you know. They don't want to be taken from any other group. So that's how I start working on the script, you know, by, in a way, making the first chapter. At that time, it was the opening of the film in the script, where they came from. Running in the forest, chased by Dutch soldiers with dogs and guns. And each time they capture one of them, he would be tortured and exposed in the plantation. You know, so they survive a lot of things, you know. That was for me, I build a story with this memory in the middle of it. Then the narration starts in 82, when their mother was burned alive, and it's the first time in the record of newspaper you can read about Jean Denis, who was fly with her in helicopter to the hospital and stay with her. She was burned alive, but it took her 3 weeks to die. He stayed with her. That's how it started, the story. And it will end more or less today. In a scene that is with his lawyer, and he explained why he's ready to spend a lot of money to get to have this lie. You know what is lie? It's the international court, European court of lie. You've heard of it? That's where the Serbian guy, our judge. I'm sure you've heard of it. I think in England it's
Oh, The
Hague.
Hague. Oh, The Hague. Yes, yes, of
yeah.
course.
Den Haag.
Yes.
Den Haag.
Yeah.
So Den Haag court. So he's going to go there to clean his name. So that's going to be probably the end of the film.
Milosevic.
Huh?
The Milosevic case in Serbia and the Hague International Treaty.
Yeah. And Blasco 3 weeks ago.
And Lebanon too.
Mm. Yeah.
The dog issue, hunted by the dog and stuff. History is repeating itself. It's so funny that 400 years ago they had to free themselves from the plantations, etc. And nowadays he's also destined to free himself again, this time in international courts. And when you mentioned the word dogs, I just thought that gold in itself was the intruder. And because gold was discovered somewhere, he became the intruder himself.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And you know, I was told by many of them, even the old guy, in the tradition of the Alukus, the women, the men were hunting, and the women, they used to clean. Growing the vegetable crops was a man job. Driving the boat also, you know. But the women, from time to time, when something was needed, they would go somewhere in the forest, they knew. They will take a little gold, you know, in there. And they sell like 3 grams or 10 grams. They knew it was there, you know, their grandmother. Let's get a new pot or whatever, you know.
Go find some gold.
Yeah. So they knew all the time gold was there, you know. So, but it was not, it became very surprising for them, the rush for gold, you know.
It was a fait accompli at that.
Huh?
It was a fait accompli before that.
Bah oui. And you know, they always say that, let's say, the African coast is like that, and South America like that. Huh? Yeah. And the slave came from that part of Africa, huh? Togo, Benin, the west coast. And they were taken by boat to the Caribbean island, somewhere here, and to Suriname, and Guyana, and Venezuela, and Brazil. And if you look at the geological map, you realize this part of Africa was called during the colonial Gold Coast.
Yeah.
This is Gold Coast. And this Gold Coast, if you look at geographical book, these 2 continents were together. Huh? So, of course, the Ashanti people are the owner of the gold. It's called Ghana today, the Gold Coast, it's Ghana. If you reunify those two continents that were together, you find the same trees, the same butterfly, everything. And the gold also is there, you know? So the Aluku or the Saramaka, they say, we were taken from there, they brought us there, and under our feet, gold